Okay, Linda, you're on.
Okay, where's the mic? Okay, the prohibition against killing appears in nearly every ancient law code. It's been the most basic of ethical and moral requirements since the beginning of civilization. Yet the last 100 years have been the deadliest in the history of the human race. It seems clear that humanity has utterly failed to abide by this most basic of ethical imperatives. So, our opening discussion question is, when was the last time you were confronted with an act of violence, either personally or something you heard about through the media? What was your reaction or response?
Shock.
Wait, say that again?
Shock, just utter shock, you know, just not disbelief.
What?
Can you say something about the event or the?
Well, the latest has been like the police getting shot. I know that like they're getting shot just sitting in their patrol cars, people walking up to them and taking them out. Just daily events of people dying in violence. It's just every day practically.
What's going on in the Middle East right now?
Yeah.
The whole world, really. I just.
Yeah, shooting of over 3,000 rockets from the what do you call it, Gaza Strip into Israel. But the only intent was to kill people. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, and what set them off this time? I just, it's too disturbing to even think about.
Well, they were upset because Israel is starting to create new settlements again and moving Palestinians out of their homes.
Oh.
So, yeah, they've done that for years. I don't know what the actual details in this particular case are, but that's the nature of the conflict. But there were a lot of holy days in this past month in both the Muslim and the Jewish calendar. And so some of the behavior seems to be connected with those holy days. Days when people might not be, when people might be doing something besides fighting wars.
You know, what kind of strikes me about this is how there's so much of it that you almost don't even, it becomes ordinary. You know, you're not
shocked about it.
You're not shocked about it. Yeah.
It's happening too often.
Yeah, it's so pervasive.
Horrible.
Yeah, and sometimes it just feels like when you're listening to the baseball scores.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, you know, if the Mets lose 10-6 one day, that's terrible. But the next day, the Mets win by 12-5, and so life goes on, you know. But that's not what this is people's lives.
Yeah.
Homes and everything, you know.
Yeah.
It's been going on for centuries.
It's been going on for centuries, yeah. That's, well, since Cain and Abel, I guess.
Right.
All right, you want to move us down, please?
Certainly.
So our opening prayer. Lord, we praise you for being present with us today and every day. Help us to know you better through each and every commandment we explore, and to learn more about your desire and hope for our lives. We praise you as the God of peace, even in our turbulent world. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
That's right.
Donna is rebooting her computer, so it's taking forever, she said.
Okay.
I think we ought to take up an offering and get her a new computer.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to try to get this thing online. And you can tell me whether anything is coming up. Do you see anything on the screen right now?
No.
Just white, now black.
It's
You
black.
see all black now?
Yes,
Yep. Loading. Yep.
loading.
See the picture.
It's there.
And now we come to the sixth commandment. And I wonder how Moses heard these words when God said, "You shall not kill." I wonder if he looked down at his feet in shame, remembering 40 years earlier when he killed the Egyptian taskmaster, how he lived as a fugitive in Sinai for 40 years because of that crime. I wonder if he felt guilty at that moment. Now, the command to not murder has far-reaching consequences, or not kill has far-reaching consequences, but I thought we might start by visiting once more with Rabbi Art Nemitov. Let's take a listen. So let's take a look at do not kill, which seems pretty straightforward, although do not kill is, it's not referring to animals because we're allowed to eat. It's not referring to war because war is at times commanded in Scripture. It's not referred to capital punishment because you find capital punishment in the Torah. So when it's speaking about do not kill, what is the commandment saying?
I would suggest that the English that we're using may be inappropriate or inaccurate. I would rather use do not murder.
Yeah.
Murder is prohibited. Killing is permitted under certain circumstances.
Right.
When we murder another human being, we are murdering God's image. And so we are, in fact, murdering God. And when you look at the Ten Commandments, you have 5 here and 5 here. In Jewish tradition, the first one, which is I am God, matches the 6th one, which is do not murder. And that's why they're parallel, because we are creating God's image. We have God's soul within us. And if we destroy that, it's as though we're destroying God.
Yes, good. What does that, given that most of your members are not inclined to murder someone else?
I hope not.
Yes. So what might this commandment mean for people who are not inclined to murder someone else? Is there any additional meaning, or is it simply the prohibition against this?
I think it's a statement about the value of life, that each human being is creating God's image, and that when we harm another person, it's as though we're harming God.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just about murder, but it uses that as the extreme example.
Right. Jesus, when he spoke about this, talked about how you've heard that it was said of old, you shall not murder, but then he talks about not hating, and he talks about loving your enemy and turning the other cheek, and all of these things are sort of bound up in this not doing harm, but instead practicing love towards the other. So for Jesus, the command not to murder wasn't just about not killing people. I'm not worried that any of you watching this video are tempted to kill other human beings, but I'm pretty certain that all of us have had the tendency to use words in a way that bring harm to other people. We learned as children, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. But we all know that's not true. And how easy it is for us to gossip about someone else, or to speak about somebody in a way that's not true, to pass on rumors, or today to offer harmful words by using not just our lips, but our cell phones as we're typing into social media platforms, talking on Facebook or Twitter, or even the emojis that we use are all ways of either blessing or harming other people. And I want to encourage you to think about how are we in danger of harming other people with our words as you study this commandment. But I want to move beyond that to recognize that this commandment is not just about not killing or harming other people. Jesus flips it once more. And the positive side of this was you shall love your neighbors, you love yourself. You shall love even your enemies. That love wasn't a warm, fuzzy feeling. It was a way of blessing and doing good to others. And in the process of doing that, we find the good and beautiful life. So I want to encourage you to take the time to ponder, what does that look like today? And I want to end by taking you to another archaeological site in Egypt just to show you some of what you'd see there. So let's head to Egypt. So when you're in Luxor, one of the places you want to visit is the Luxor Temple by night. One of the important things to know about the city of Luxor, of course it was the ancient city of Thebes, is that it was here that the royal family would have been educated. So they would have been educated in philosophy, they would have been educated in law, in religion. All of these things they would have learned here in this city. So there's no question, if Moses was raised as a prince in Pharaoh's household, he would have come here to be educated. He would have seen these temples. Now, what you see here was built during the time of Moses. So during his lifetime, if we date Moses to the Exodus to 1290, this was built during Moses' lifetime. Inside this temple, we find portions that were built before the time of Moses. But when you come here, you get a chance to see, especially in the statues that are in the front, all of this built during the period of Ramses II. And if Ramses II is the pharaoh of the Exodus, then what you see is his, let's just call it what it is, an outsized ego. You're going to find statues of Ramses all over Egypt. These are, I mean, you know, we're talking statues of a man who was pharaoh 3,300 years ago, and yet when you come here, you find he wanted to make sure people remembered him. They knew who he was. And that stands in stark contrast to Moses, where in Scripture we read that Moses was the most humble man who lived, and Ramses II appears to be a man with an oversized ego, with an outsized ego. So as we go inside, we're going to have a chance to see what this temple looked like, and I want you just to be able to take it in. It's one of the sights that you see at night when you come to Luxor because of its beauty in the evening. So let's go inside. So we're getting ready to go into the Holy of Holies here in the temple in Luxor. So this represents the throne room of Amun-Ra. It represents the holiest place in the temple. And the same idea again carries through in the temple in Jerusalem when it was built much later. And in the tent of meeting that Moses builds, the tabernacle, the portable sanctuary. So the ideas, the way it's set up are very similar. It comes and drawn from the temples like this one. So let's go inside the Holy of Holies. Let's see what it's like. From here, we go on to explore other sites here in Egypt as we continue to contemplate the significance of the Ten Commandments. Let's go.
There is everybody.
Mm.
Hi, Donna. Welcome. All right, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. No, I think let's see what happens.
Okay, good. Video discussion. In his younger years, Moses killed a man. How do you imagine Moses must have felt when God gave him this commandment for Israel?
So hard because we don't have enough information.
No, it's just how, right, how would
Moses
you
kill a man
imagine?
because he did something evil or something reprehensible enough to justify that reaction? Or was the man threatening him in such a way that was his only defense?
Yeah, I think he saw a soldier that was beating up on a Hebrew slave, and that provoked him into defending the
Maybe
slave.
go back to the original burning bush when God asked him to do this journey. And he says, I knew I wasn't the right guy for it. And here I killed this guy. Because he kept saying, no, don't send me. But in actuality, he did.
But then I think what you're saying, and it does bring up that whole question of, is it ever justified?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that goes into your second paragraph there.
Right. Rabbi suggested a more accurate translation of this commandment is right, you shall not murder, and that it connects back to the first commandment in the Jewish tradition. So what connection did he make?
Well, if you're murdering somebody, it's you're murdering, you know, I don't know, I can't explain it. I can think about it, but I can't.
Premeditated, or is it occurred out of response?
A response to something that happened,
To
right,
something that
right.
occurred. Which one is it? If it's premeditated, it's murder. Is the other murder? It's hard to say, and that's why we have courts all over the world making these kinds of decisions.
Right.
Because there's no way to determine that without complete evidentiary hearing.
It seems to me that the connection with the first commandment is that, as the rabbi said, the person is created in the image of God.
Right.
And so if you're killing a person, you are in effect killing God. And you certainly are, you know, taking the role of God, because who's the only one that has the right to give life and to kill, and that's God. And so if you, you know, do it to somebody, you're really taking over God's role. You're kind of pushing God to the side and saying, I'm God. That's a pretty nasty way to think.
Right. But then how do you relate that to, you know, to things like war and, you know, killing in self-defense, you know, protect your family at night, you know.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, what do you do?
I think the soldiers that come back from war, they're definitely affected by it, regardless of whether they're soldiers and they know they're protecting, you know, people's rights and whatnot. Because how many of these men come back, and women, and they're so emotionally devastated that they have such difficult time coming back to what would be considered a normal life in America.
Yes, absolutely.
Of course.
Because I know it wasn't right, but they had to do it to defend our country, and yet they come back and now they're torn.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. World War II veterans really didn't talk about it.
No.
No, exactly.
I think of Pastor Bonadonna and how he has to do, how he mends these people's hearts, these men and women's hearts. He deals with that.
World War II was very different. Yeah. Because it had specific enemies, both in person and in organization, in country, community, whatever you want to call it. It was Germany and Japan against the rest of the world. And so it was a whole different thing to imagine. That I can't wrap my head around this at all.
Yeah.
But this was all referring to a much earlier time and a different situation. Today, can you indict a man who pushes a button that killed somebody 1,000 miles away? Can you indict him for that? Because you can't see him, because you don't know it, because they're sitting under a mountain in Colorado, and they could push a button and destroy an entire civilization. There's too many questions. This is very tricky.
Yeah. And it's,
Go ahead.
no, I was just thinking, you know, in the Bible, you know, if you look in the Old Testament, there's lots of killing.
Right.
Oh, the Bible's a war novel.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. Everybody's at war with everybody all the time.
Yeah.
In the book on page 118, bottom paragraph says Numbers 35 discusses various degrees of moral and criminal culpability for different kinds of homicide. So I think there's so many varying degrees of, I don't know, they differentiated between murder and killing, but there's just different degrees of the whole topic. It's hard to say.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
You know, like, is it justified at times? I don't know. I guess there are times, I don't know, but then, you know, then you have capital punishment too. That's another whole topic.
Right.
So.
Yeah, lots of questions.
Yeah.
So let's.
There is an example of a suicide in the book, in the chapter, that one fellow who was gay and was ridiculed. He committed suicide. So that's another whole topic.
Right. Mm. Yeah. So how we can focus a little now, how does Jesus flip this commandment into a thou shalt?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, thou shalt love your enemy.
Very good. Yep, that's it.
He goes a step further. He says, love your neighbor.
Right.
So that your relationships with those around you would be healthy rather than hurtful.
Right.
And if you have a problem with somebody, go to that person and try to work it out.
Yeah, I think Jesus says it's a lot harder.
Yeah. And on 130, it says, when we read the commandments through the eyes of Jesus, we recognize that the command prohibiting murder is ultimately a command calling for love. Loving one's enemy does not mean summoning one's feelings for them.
Yes.
It is to see them as a human being created in the image of God and to treat them as you wish they had treated you.
Right. That treat your others as you would treat yourself is the same kind of thing.
Right, but it's not saying to love your enemy, which is
right.
That's what that said, you know.
But to treat the other person the way you want to be treated.
The way you treat them. Which I guess that means you don't have to have the feelings, but your behavior has to be right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can only be convicted because of your actions, not because of your feelings. If you convicted people for their feelings, well, then you'd have an awful lot of people in trouble.
Yeah.
But you know, the other piece that Jesus throws into the discussion is when he talks about how people can injure one another with their words.
And thoughts.
Yeah, but especially their words, because that's something somebody else can hear, and it becomes public. And you think about, you know, how people, especially now with social media and so on, people are able to kill one another, literally, just using social media, and that's really frightening. Think of, you know, teenagers who commit suicide because of stupid things that are said on social media. And so just turning off their computer or hit it with a hammer or something like that, they kill themselves.
It's true.
Yeah.
So, and he flips it around by, in effect, saying, you know, your words matter.
Yeah.
What you say matters. So use your words in a way that builds up rather than tears down.
That's all there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, now we have video, but until this time, it was only people lived by their word.
Yeah.
The days not so long ago when a handshake was a binding agreement.
Yeah.
With another human being.
Yeah.
To do or not do something. So that's been around a very long time. And it's only more recently that we've taken this attitude of everything's okay.
Yeah, and you have the right to hurt somebody else because you think somebody, you know, you support a particular way of thinking.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Here's text.
Isaiah 2. Does anybody want to read it?
Sure, I'll read it.
Thank you.
There's another one coming too.
Okay. He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore.
Okay. And here's the other one.
Okay. The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the goat. The calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear. Their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox. They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This is a description of dying and going to heaven.
Exactly.
This is not ever going to happen on the planet.
Right. Without violence, it's a picture of God's ideal world.
Yeah.
A picture of heaven.
Right.
Yeah.
But we don't live in that world yet.
No.
Not ever going to live in that world because people have free will, which is given to everyone by God when they're created, when they were created. Free will was part of it. And it's been a positive and negative feature of the human condition ever since. As long as you have the ability to choose, you can choose badly at any time.
Right, right. Right. I often, that often comes up in teaching confirmation with the kids. And, you know, I try to explain, you know, if God made everybody, made us all to just be perfect and do everything, then it would just be, it wouldn't mean anything. But when we have free will and we choose to do right, then it really means something to God, because then we're making that choice. So I don't know if that's right, but that's what I always tell them about why we have free will, that then God can be pleased with what we do. Yeah. And that's what pleases God, rather than to be puppets, to be Stepford wives or something. So yeah, is there a slide person? So what are these, we said what these verses say about God's desire for the world, God's ideal world. What are your thoughts about? Well, we already talked a little bit of thoughts about self-defense, war, and manslaughter. Yeah. If you think about self-defense, war, and manslaughter, they all have to do with sin, don't they?
Yeah. But self-defense, I don't, you know, if somebody's beating up on you, or if somebody's beating up on a loved one, you're going to defend that person. You know, you're gonna
yeah, but it's their sin. Right.
Yeah, yeah, right. Right. It's the other person's sin, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Right. Yeah, yeah. If somebody's hurting somebody, you're gonna by,
you know, it was just, you know, I'm on Middle Country Moms, and there was two teenagers that were fighting out in the street the other day. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. And somebody that lived where this was happening went out to the street and was helping the young man that was beat up, and called the police and everything else. The other person took off, but here this man had been assaulted and everything. At least his mother came out of her house and tried to help, you know. I don't know what the ramifications were for her, though, you know. You always hesitate getting involved.
Yeah.
Like that person assaulting could have turned on that woman too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that's a risk, you know, but you're protecting. I think of it like if somebody was hurting my own child. I mean, that's the most significant, maybe. I don't know what the word is, but yeah.
Right, you protect your own. Yeah.
Right. Right.
One of your children or grandchildren, you
yeah.
Yeah, you don't stand by.
Yeah.
Where do you go to line?
Where you go to what?
Where do you go to line? Where do you decide that it's not necessary for you to participate or to?
It's very hard.
Very difficult.
It's very difficult for that line. Right. Because you don't.
Yeah.
You don't want to see. You don't want to see anybody beat up like that. You know. Anyway.
No. All right, you want to move on slide, please? Okay, so we have a reading from Matthew. Anybody want to read it?
I'll read it. Okay, Matthew 5. You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell.
Well, first I need clarification.
Yeah.
Reverend, help me who's Raka?
I don't know. Hello?
Yeah, I don't know, right?
That was a, oh.
I never heard of that before.
No. So what
Okay,
emotion?
I'm looking it up.
Okay, does Jesus connect with this command?
What emotion does Jesus connect with this man?
Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Yeah.
Mm.
The emotion is anger.
Right, the anger. I tell you that anyone who's angry will be subject to judgment.
Raka is likened to the Hebrew word rock. The word means empty, worthless, vain, shallow brains. It is a word of contempt. Such commentators say that in the culture, it meant that a person was worthy to be spit upon when they were referred to as Raka. There you go.
That's not consistent with what we're reading.
What's that? That's what he
Raka
said.
is answerable to the court.
Yeah. So what he's saying is if you do that in public, you're not only in trouble with God, but you can be dealt with.
The law also. Okay.
Yeah. But if you say you fool, that's even worse.
Right. But, you know, if you look at verse 22, anyone who is angry, I think that we all have the ability to be angry. I don't think, you know, I don't think that's a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? What we do with that anger, I think is.
Right, it's how we deal with that anger.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think he's talking about the emotion. I think he's talking about the action that comes as a result of it.
Oh, okay.
You know? Yeah, if you're angry with a brother or sister, it's not just how you feel about them.
Right, okay.
But if you throw something at them or stab them or do something unkind.
Right. So have you ever seen anger destroy a relationship?
Yes.
Yes, all the time.
People don't speak to each other for 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some idiotic phrase or position.
Yeah, I remember someone who said he hadn't spoken to his sister for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And they lived right across the street from each other.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember way back when I was working, there was this couple and they had, I think it was 3 kids. One at least was on our unit. I think another one had been on a unit. And I was trying to get them in to do a session. And they were so angry with each other. And I said to them, was at one point you couldn't have been that angry that you had 3 kids together.
Right.
So can you just come in this room and we can talk, you know? But they were that angry that they didn't even want to walk in the room to talk about it. I mean, what does that do? And what does that do to those kids?
Yeah.
You know, that's the point of what it did to those kids. So, yeah. Yeah.
I know several people that haven't spoken to either a sibling or parent for years. I mean, I myself, my mother and I didn't talk for 4 years. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, we're fine now, but it happens.
It happens. You say something
Right.
nasty or whatever to the other person, they take it They take it very strongly, and it severs that relationship. And until amends are made, and both sides says, I'm sorry, it's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Sue said before, you know, you should be able to, that's a big word. It'd be awesome if you could, you know, approach the person and not let it linger.
Right.
But that doesn't
always happen.
That's the distance that occurs between emotion and reason.
Right.
People that are angry at each other don't want to get back to. I tried doing that with 2 of my sons, and that blew up in my face.
Wow. Wow. So
you can guide them, but doesn't mean it's going to make it happen.
Right.
That's what you can do. They have to find their own way a lot of times. And then they're very remorseful for it happening. I had aunts that died over a fight they had with their sisters. Never spoke to themselves. They both died without ever talking to each other over like 50 years. Insane. Just insane.
That's a long time, yeah.
I wonder what it came to that. Wow.
Did. There it is.
This is Matthew 5.
Oh, okay, Matthew 5. Oh, you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous.
Oh, interesting last sentence.
Yeah.
How do you spell sun?
Yeah.
Or the light. It could be the light. The sun is the light.
Yeah.
The rain can be considered the dark, but the rain is good for the righteous as well as the unrighteous. So you all need a little rain.
So what did Jesus command instead of hurting your enemies?
Pray for them.
So how easy is that to do?
What's that?
How easy is that to do?
Yeah.
So loving one another, human being. Let's see. When we read the commandments through the eyes of Jesus, we recognize that the command prohibiting murder is ultimately a command calling for love. Loving one's enemy does not mean summoning warm feelings for them. It is to see them as a human being created in the image of God and to treat them as you wish they had treated you. Yeah. So how would you describe mercy?
Love and forgiveness.
Yeah. Mercy, would that be giving something that the person hasn't earned, who doesn't deserve?
No.
Not worthy of, maybe?
Yeah, especially someone who's guilty of doing something. Instead of punishing them or getting even or whatever, you forgive them and show compassion toward them.
The example in the book was the woman that had the frozen turkey episode.
Yeah.
That turkey. Didn't that happen on the island even, I think?
He was a patient at St. Charles Hospital for real.
Yeah.
Was that the same woman?
Yes.
Yes.
That was local. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he could have gotten 25 years in prison, and she showed mercy on him. He got 6 months in probation.
Right.
And then embraced him, I think it said.
Right. And he went to her and was crying.
Yeah. Right.
And so forgiving to him.
Yeah.
Right. In what ways have you seen God be merciful to you?
I on page 131, I marked on the first paragraph at the last line from Romans. It says, "Don't be defeated by evil, but defeat evil with good." And I like that, so I had marked that. We kind of kept that in mind. It would solve a lot of anger in different ways.
Yes, yes, that was the Apostle Paul, right? Right. Before that, it says, when we return mercy and good for evil, we rob evil and hate of their power.
Yeah.
Start that again, please.
When we return mercy for good and good, mercy and good for evil, we rob evil and hate of their power.
Yeah.
Mercy.
Like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, again, I'm thinking a lot about my work, but when I worked with kids, a lot of them had very, very horrible things happen to them. And one of the things, you know, that became clear was the inability to forgive, such a strain on them. That ate away on them, holding on to all of that. And, you know, we would talk a lot about the freedom you can get if you can, if you can let, you know, forgive. And there's such power in that. You know, not only for the person that is forgiven for what they do, but when you actually forgive someone. So, and that I guess would be mercy, forgiving someone for what they've done for you. Yes. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing."
Right. They said that on the cross.
Yes. Yes. Right.
Was he referring to, there's so many complications in all this stuff. Was he referring to their behavior toward him?
Yeah.
Or their behavior as a society?
No, I thought it was. I understand.
But it also is their behavior toward the society.
I think so.
Very questionable. The whole situation that evolved between religious factions all throughout what we call the Middle East, which was where, from the time of Samaria, you had conflict over religious belief, over one God. They were called the people of the book. And that was Christians who believed in the Bible.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of people there who either didn't have a God or chose a completely different God. And so they were conflict constantly. Fascinating.
Yeah.
But that could be that particular verse, Father, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing. That's what he's saying today too. We have to forgive everybody because people are just, they don't know him. So they don't know how to behave.
Right.
A man named Jack Welch, who used to be head of General Electric, offered the United States a gift. He would give them a bomb that would only kill people, not destroy property. Now think about that. A bomb exclusively made to kill people and retain the structures and the facilities around.
Well, isn't that what COVID-19 is?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was designed to kill people. That's why they were, by the Chinese, that's what they were doing. They were doing that. You can't argue with that. You can argue with the motivation for the pandemic, but you can't argue with the fact that they were working on viruses that could kill everyone without, you know, being curable. That's what they were trying to accomplish. And we stopped doing that a few years earlier because we were doing it too. But Dr. Fauci said the Chinese can do it. We're not going to do it. That was good.
We need to pray for him too.
Need to love him too.
Yes.
So have you ever been on the receiving end of undeserved mercy from another? What effect did that gift have on everyone involved?
What constitutes undeserved? I love these.
Well, one time I was driving home from church and I was in a hurry because I had to go to a meeting in a half hour back at the church. And so as I was driving on Wedgwood Drive, I went by the street where it's a dead end on one side and there's a stop sign. So I came to the stop sign, but I didn't come to a full and complete stop. I took my foot off of the brake and the car rolled through the intersection and I got pulled over by a police officer for having gone through a stop sign that there was no traffic on in any direction. And he showed undeserved mercy to me.
He showed you mercy, he didn't give you a ticket?
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I bet your collar helped.
Yeah, well, that's true. I said, yeah, I'm on my way home because I have to get back to church. Yeah, that's true.
There you go.
Yeah. Let's hear it for Catholic police officers.
So anybody else?
It was still undeserved.
Yeah.
Didn't have much of an effect on anyone. Well, there must be other examples here.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have been on the other end. I just can't think of a specific incident or any incident, you know.
Well, the terminology is hard to relate to.
Same as undeserved.
If you take away undeserved, it has a whole different, it becomes a whole different concept.
Yeah, it's no longer mercy.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, is mercy?
Mercy is undeserved.
It's undeserved, right?
Right.
By definition, yeah.
So grace is getting what you don't deserve, and mercy is not getting what you deserve. And what we didn't get, well, I've heard that before. I had to think about it to write it down, but
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good one.
Grace is getting what you don't deserve.
Yeah.
I'm thinking way back to when I was a teenager and I lied. Well, it wasn't so much lying. I was staying over at a friend's house. Me and another friend were staying at this other friend's house, but her sister, her brother, she lived with her brother and her sister and brother-in-law, and they both worked nights. So we had a party. All kinds of people were there, and you know, all night long, smoking pot, drinking, all kinds of things were going on. The brother-in-law came home early, and everybody ran out of the house, including me and the other two girls. And we went into this guy's car, and she said, "We can't go back till my sister gets home. We can't do that. We have to wait till morning when my sister gets home, then we'll go back to the house." So here we are sitting in this guy's car, waiting for morning. In the meantime, the brother-in-law called the sister. She came home and called our parents to let them know we were not at the house like we were supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my poor parents now for 2 hours had no clue, where is our daughter? And same thing with the other girl's mother. And we finally, somebody tracked us down and said, "You better get home. Your parents are out looking for you." So in the end, of course, I got grounded. I really did not do things like that often, okay? I was not a liar and sneaking stuff, but okay. So anyway, I got grounded and I felt, yeah, I deserve it. And I had a date that weekend, the following weekend, and I was on the phone telling this guy, I cannot go out. And my parents overheard me and stuff. they came in and they said, you know what, it's okay, you can go out for a little while. And I said, no, I really deserved to be grounded. So then they said, well, he can come over. And they let him come over. I didn't feel like I deserved it. I really didn't. I knew I did wrong.
Wow.
That wasn't deserved.
That's right.
I should have been punished.
I have kind of a flip example from a long time ago when Rachel was a baby. And all of a sudden one day I noticed she had this big bump on her head. And we didn't know what it was. We took her to the pediatrician. He sent us over for x-rays. And I remember I was on the phone with him and he said, you know, if it was anybody but you, I would have to report this to Child Protective Services. What happened to her? Right. And I was like, I said, could Laura have hit her with a toy? He was like, no, you know. So come to find out, the girl next door had been our babysitter, and I had told her not to change her on the changing table because she was a very active baby. And she had changed her on the changing table, and she had fallen down. And poor Marilyn, she was so upset. But I had to forgive her, you know, and let her babysit again, you know. But it was just the opposite of really having to say, yeah. She was so devastated by that. And Rachel's,
Mm-hmm. So Rachel has this big bump in her head to this day. No.
She remembers falling off that table. She told me the story.
Yeah? Oh.
Yeah, she told me.
Yeah,
Not really. Kidding. Rachel really remembers that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's getting dangerous here. Okay.
Next question.
So Ephesians 4:29. Anyone want to read that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen.
Okay.
I said before, Pastor, while words hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In what ways is the Lord asking you to forgive or love others in a way that you might not have considered before?
A few other questions first.
Right. So Moses taught us do not kill. But Jesus said it goes deeper than that. Don't harm others. Don't return insult for insult. Forgive others and love your enemy. In doing so, you will find a good and beautiful life. Have you ever felt that this commandment wasn't relevant to you? Don't kill. And has the study changed your view of that?
I had something this weekend. I had an issue. I've got two brothers. I'm closer with one brother than the other, and I'm closer with my brother Peter's, the children and everything. I'm closer. My other brother lives in Georgia, and his daughter lives in Manhattan now. She works in Manhattan and everything. I have I can't remember the last time I saw her. She's getting married in August. Now, she sent out invitations to her wedding in Georgia. My children did not get invitations. Yet my brother's two children got invitations.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they're friendly. They're friendly with my nephew Peter, James. Okay, that I get them. They're like, it's more. It goes beyond being cousins. They're friends also. They're similar in age. My niece, who is a step-niece technically, got an invitation only because they had been invited to her wedding. That was like 2 years ago. But I mean, you just totally left my kids out of this, just totally. And it hurt me. You can hurt me. Okay, I'll get over it, but don't hurt my kids. So I was very, very angry about it. And in the end, I guess, they got the second wave of invites and they did get invited. My daughter said, I don't need no pity invite. I'm not going. And I'm going back and forth just because of my health issues. Okay. And my son, I mean, my brother's reaction to it was, well, she really doesn't know Philip that well. Hey, that's your cousin. Okay, so this weekend, I was at a bridal shower for my nephew who's getting married in July, who my kids are invited right from the beginning, and they heard what happened. So I was talking about it. And we kind of went through the whole scenario, and I said, yeah, I was hurt. I was hurt about it. My aunt called me on it because I'm telling her about this whole thing. She goes, Donna, you talking about that was not the Christianly thing to do. Oh. So when I read this, it was like, oh, yeah, I really shouldn't have. I should have just, yeah, they got invites, they're not going, blah, 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 and just left it. But I let my feelings be known, and I should have done that. I probably shouldn't have done that. Right? I don't know.
The thing, to me,
yeah, we say things, you know, and I'm guilty of it myself. I say things sometimes, and then I go home and I can't sleep at night because I'll say, now what the heck did I say? And why did I say that? Why did that come out? And
yeah, but I really didn't say anything directly like bad about them. I was just responding like how I felt, you know, what my feelings were, that like I was really hurt. And my nephew, now their wedding's at the end of July. He hit gold when he met her. She is such a sweet, sweet girl. So they got married last year when they were supposed to, but now they're having the big wedding this year. She is just the epitome of love. She really is. And she was talking to me about it, and she said that she felt they were wrong. Family comes first, then you invite your friends. You know, and yeah. So it wasn't that like I was saying, oh, my brother, he's a fool, he's a this. I didn't do that. I was just saying I was hurt. So I don't know. Was that wrong? I don't know. I probably shouldn't have, you know, really gotten into the whole thing.
well, you put the ownership on yourself. You were hurt.
Yeah.
That's how you felt. It's not, you weren't making a
like he was bad, and they I really
what he was saying, because they were not.
See, they were not aware that had happened, because they asked me if they were going, and I said, well, you know, they really weren't even invited at the beginning. They're like, what? So I ended up telling them the story, and like, what, you know? Then I said, yeah, I was really hurt about it. So we kind of got into a whole discussion. So they said, no, family's first. And I am much closer with them. That brother always was.
Donna, today young people, they're doing their list. They're not asking their parents anything. So.
No, my brother was fully aware of everything that was going on, because when I found out that those two got their invites, I thought, what happened? I thought maybe they got, there was a mistake somewhere. And I texting. My brother very rarely talks on the phone because he's the one that has brain cancer. So he's always texting. So, I said, gee, Shanna and Philip didn't get invites. He goes, well, she really doesn't know Philip. I'm like, what? And he never gave me a reason why not Shanna. Then the whole thing about COVID, and they have to keep the numbers down. They've gone through the list so many times. But then I found out my cousins who they're friendly with got invited too. And they all said no. So that's why my kids got invites, because, yeah, they have the room now. And it hurt me. Like I said, hurt me is one thing. Don't hurt my kids. Right. Don't hurt my. Then he turned around and said, if you need somebody to travel with you, okay, you can bring Shanna as your one. I'd be bringing Philip before I brought Shanna.
Wow.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyway.
All right.
It's a long story.
That's a long story, as always.
How has the study changed your view of this commandment's intent?
Yeah.
And when I think of the commandments when I was a child or younger, you always thought about do not kill.
Right.
But now, when we're reading this book, it's more, and I passed this comment in the beginning, it's your words also.
Right.
And it makes you think more about what you say, because your words can kill. Your words can hurt somebody, you know? So I think that in that respect, when it says, how has that the study changed my view, it makes me think about it more.
Yeah.
It's not just kill, it's not just murder.
No.
It's other things that you do to hurt somebody.
Right.
Not necessarily killing that person or not murdering that person, but how you hurt other people. And that's how it's changed my view, I think.
Right.
If you adjust the phraseology, the pen is mightier than the sword. The word is the pen.
Yeah.
Well, when I've always been appalled by murder and war and all that stuff. It's not what we should be doing. But it did put me in a different perspective that when we do kill somebody or these people being killed by someone, it's the image of God. And I never looked at it that way. And that just gives me a whole different perspective that way.
Yeah.
You know, we're really hurting God by doing that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That's not what he wants.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, too, the idea of even your thoughts, I think that's hard to, you know, like sometimes I get really annoyed with myself. Why can't I think better about this?
Yeah, right.
But I guess if you
we beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to rationalize it, but the thoughts are bad enough, but it's when we do the action, I think, is what God, and God is, to me, when we say these thoughts, then we kind of, after we say these thoughts, oh, I'm sorry, I should not have thought of that, because that's not what God wants me to do. And in a sense, I think we're asking forgiveness, and that, I think that's our humanness, and that's why He forgives us, because He brings us around back to Him, in the sense that after we think it, or maybe even say it under our breath, oh, why did I say that? That was so mean. That was so unforgiving. And I think that, yeah, it's our humanness, and that's our failing. That's our weakness.
Yeah.
And not an excuse, but it's what we do.
It's the way we are. So in what ways is the Lord asking you to forgive or love others in a way you might not have considered before?
Well, the philosophy here at church has been interesting, is where we say, do a kindness, one kindness a day. And that's all involved with this. With this is that if you wish to change the world and how we live, then you have to start somewhere, and that's here.
Right.
And it's one kindness by one person every day.
Yeah.
And if you can move the population to that, I tell a funny story, and it's not self-aggrandizing. There was a woman behind me in 7-Eleven when I was getting coffee a couple of months ago, and I bought her coffee, and she said, she was so much appreciated. She said, I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I'm going to go back and tell my students about this. Okay, no obligation, goodbye.
Right.
Yeah.
But other people, you could offend them by doing that. So it's kind of a selective thing that has to be used carefully.
It's a risk.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then that's the old story. If there's no reward, if there's no risk.
Yeah. All right. I think we're about ready to wrap up.
Thank you.
With our closing prayer. Heavenly Father, you know our greatest needs, even when we aren't aware of them. Search our hearts, Lord, and help us to see ways we hurt others with our words and actions. Help us to let go of any bitterness or anger we're harboring, and embrace the love you so graciously give us, so we can extend that love to others. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Very good. Stuff to think about, huh?
Yeah, and I want to thank Donna for helping me last week, because for weeks we've been dealing with this